Hey everybody, and welcome to June on Not Your Mother's Goose. Well, the middle of June actually by now. I'm Topher Goggin, and it's time for another episode of the show that takes you back to everything from once upon a time, except the prices. Coming up today, we'll wrap up our tour of the Disney afternoon as we've reached our scheduled departure time with Baloo on TaleSpin. We'll also do some more flying with Superman, investigate the other Marys that we haven't covered yet on the program, and get the latest on the Great Pumpkin's performance-enhancing drugs scandal in the news. Be sure to stay tuned to the end, as today's the day we jump into the most popular genre in the podcast world, true crime. That's right, it's the debut of our new investigative segment, Not Your Mother's Goons, and we're going to take a new unbiased look at the story of the Gingerbread Man. Up first, we've been to Duckburg and chased the baddies with the rescue rangers on the Disney afternoon already. Now we're in the jungle looking for the local FedEx office. It's time for TaleSpin. TaleSpin. It's time to wrap up our series on the Disney afternoon, or at least my favorite parts of it. Sorry, gummy bears, I just like eating you. And that means it's time to cover TaleSpin. Last time, we discussed the rather curious decision that the ideal career for a couple of juvenile chipmunks would be adventuring detectives. If you've managed to come to grips with that one, then try this on for size. Start by going back in the memory bank to the Jungle Book and reviewing Baloo's resume. Singing and dancing bear, early adopter of the Hakuna Matata lifestyle, last seen partying in a grass skirt while wearing various fruits and vegetables on his head. Clearly what this guy needs is his own airplane. That's right, your whole concept here is Baloo Bush Pilot. Now sure, there are other characters. There's a Baloo Jr. named Kit who tags along and gets some mentorship, Mowgli style. We've got Baloo's boss, a small business owner bear named Rebecca, who seems completely bright except for employing Baloo at her air-based delivery company. Then there's a lion mechanic named Wildcat, who initially seems to possess a similar knowledge of airplanes as Chevy Chase and Fletch, but Wildcat does eventually prove to be a whiz at fixing everything. Baloo and Kit manage to get themselves in trouble most every episode, though not so much because of having a delivery record on par with a three-wheeled postal truck. Instead, they get themselves chased on a regular basis by a group of air pirates, most frequently one named Don Carnage, a wolfish fox type that combines the stupidity of the Sheriff of Nottingham with the overconfidence of Brer Fox from Splash Mountain. If you remember the show intro, when Don comes chasing, Baloo responds by feeding a pineapple through his own propeller, which is definitely a recommended maneuver according to the FAA. We do have a couple other Jungle Book characters also trying new careers after midlife crises, most notably former Jungle King Shere Khan. He's now the CEO of Khan Industries, where he wears a really snazzy double-breasted blue suit that accents the orange fur quite nicely. Getting out of rooming with Ka the hypnotic snake really seems to have helped with the career advancement. Meanwhile, King Louie the orangutan has taken a different path in his personal rebranding, abandoning his quest for fire in favor of wearing Hawaiian shirts and running a nightclub. Between him and Dale on Rescue Rangers, I really do wonder if Disney hired Jimmy Buffett as some sort of fashion consultant along the way here. So there you have it. It's a variety of animals chasing Baloo around in a seaplane to wrap up the Disney afternoon for you. And that is quite an afternoon of television. Ducks with Bucks at 3:30, the all-rodent version of Cops at 4, and an airline safety briefing with Baloo at 4:30. That is a full afternoon of TV, sure to put you way behind on your homework. Spin it! It's time for the Not Your Mother's Goose news, just like the real news, except not terrible. Also not true, but whatever. Let's see what's happening. Eeyore's application to Optimist Club still in review. Lesser-known pied pianist performing at Hamlin Piano Bar. And our lead story from the world of doping, Great Pumpkin mired in PED scandal. Linus is reaching for his security blanket this morning, reeling from the shocking revelation that his idol, the Great Pumpkin, may not have been the hero once believed. 60 Minutes broke the news last night, unleashing a bombshell expose suggesting that the Great Pumpkin may be embroiled in a performance-enhancing drug scandal rivaling baseball's steroids era. Using hidden cameras, reporter Bill Whitaker obtained footage of the Great Pumpkin at a local Target store, purchasing 2 carts full of Miracle Grow and a book on hydroponics. While the pumpkin declined an on-camera interview, a statement released by his attorney claimed the Miracle Grow was a gift from Sesame Street's Captain Vegetable in an off-season Secret Santa exchange. The allegations are the latest in a long line of controversies surrounding the pumpkin, ranging from skipping Halloween meet and greets with fans to questions about his true ability to fly after he was spotted leaving David Copperfield's warehouse with a van full of equipment. Summer is here, and that means it's lawn care season. We've found the service that will help you, whether you want it to or not.
Hey you!
Me? What?
Yeah, you. The one running the dandelion factory over there. How's your yard?
My yard is just fine.
Actually, no. Save your breath and just call me. I'm Mary Mary, and while people think I'm just about silver bells and cockle shells, here at Contrary Yard Services, I'm here to help with all of your fairy tale landscaping needs. How does your garden grow?
My garden grows just fine, thank you.
Does your beanstalk need pruning?
I don't have a beanstalk. I have a yard.
Doesn't matter. Call Contrary. We do everything. Roses in need of a paint job? We've got rollers that will finish the job in half the time.
Paint my roses? I don't paint my roses.
Also, you do have roses. If you happen to keep one in that creepy room of your west wing that's losing all its petals, our fertilizers and feeds can extend your chance of living happily ever after.
I'm already married, so I'm already living happily ever after like all married couples.
Sure, ma'am, whatever you say. Believe me, you've got more than just weed problems.
And like I said, I don't have weed problems.
Doesn't matter. Call Contrary. Weeds literally scream out loud when they see us coming. At least they did when we did that work in Ursula's garden. I've never seen weeds like those. Weird job.
Now that I believe. I'm really not at all interested.
Well, thanks for hiring us. You'll be happy. Remember, whether you're Thumbelina caring for your lily pad or maybe Mother Gothel singing to that creepy flower, we'll get your plants all in a row. We're right around the mulberry bush. Tell your friends to call Contrary today.
You've heard both of those voices before. That was Mrs. Coyman and Mrs. Darrow, my high school English teachers. When I found out that Mrs. Darrow was headed out west to visit Mrs. Coyman, I knew I had to get them to put their vocal talents together for the show if I could possibly talk them into it. I am most appreciative of the effort they put into that. They ran into some technical issues, and it took about 2 hours to get a good recording of 2 minutes of audio. I'm also appreciative in light of the fact that I pretty much tortured both of them in class for a substantial period of time in high school, but that's another story. Speaking of other stories, though, we should get back to the news. Homer Simpson named new host of Tic-Tac-Toe. Winnie from Hocus Pocus, newest Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher at Hogwarts. And from our Medical Legal Bureau, Jumping Monkey sues Serta. The parents of a local monkey named Graham have filed a lawsuit against the Serta Mattress Company this morning, asserting that their son sustained a concussion after his perfect sleeper catapulted him off during a recent bed-jumping session. A spokesperson for Serta did not seem fazed by the result, telling reporters that the claim was meritless and that, quote, defending this one will be more fun than a barrel of, well, you get my drift. Serta's lawyers blamed Graham, claiming the incident was part of a series that began with at least 5 little monkeys jumping on the bed, despite it being rated for no more than 3 jumpers at a time. Despite its popularity, doctors continue to warn that bed jumping is not a safe activity for monkeys. Local doctor Greg Hall, who receives hundreds of calls from primate mothers each year, commented, "How many times do I have to tell you? No more monkeys jumping on the bed." He did, however, recommend that parents of jumpers purchase a multi-use punch card for his hotline, where after 4 calls for bumped heads, the 5th little monkey is free. The Other Marys. I hate to sound like a complainer, but your friends, the brothers Grimm, Aesop, Charles Perrault, aka Mother Goose, Hans Christian Andersen, those folks don't win any prizes for creativity and character naming. We learned last time with the Newtonian fairy tales that there are about a dozen folks out there with little in their name, but beyond that, half of the dudes are named Jack. Go ahead, I'll give you a second. Beanstalk, Be Nimble, Horner, the one with Jill, and pretty much all of the ladies are named Mary. Some of these folks we've covered already. We did a full write-up of Mary Poppins, and we took a look at Mary Had a Little Lamb, a situation that descended into controversy that somehow involved Henry Ford. But we've got at least two more prominent Marys, and that's not counting the obscure ones like Miss Mary Mack, who I guess is like the less expensive store brand of patty cake. Now, our two Marys today, let's just say they didn't fare quite so hot. You know how people go on Survivor and then they claim they got a bad edit when the producers only show the time that they fed one of the other players' undershorts to a manatee? Well, these Marys definitely did not get good edits in their nursery rhyme worlds. The first one's pretty obvious. That's Lazy Mary. The poor girl hits the metaphorical snooze button one day, and the next thing you know, her mother is trolling her with a song that literally only talks about her refusing to get up. There is no follow-up verse. There's no Lazy Mary, will you mow the lawn? Nothing. Just the deal about sleeping in. My dad literally could have written this song in under a minute and a half, and he only types with 2 fingers. But if you think that Lazy Mary got a bad edit, you actually need to dive deep into the portrayal of Mary Mary Quite Contrary. This sounds like a charming little ditty about a gardener. So of course, if you Google it, you get about 50 different explanations of what it's really about. Most of those involve real people named Mary. Some of them include Bloody Mary, the person, not the beverage. And they all end up invoking symbolism for something like a torture device or a guillotine or who knows what. It is not an uplifting garden by any stretch of the imagination, and this is why I refuse to go pull weeds and always just stay inside and watch TV. Let's go watch Survivor, because they're probably voting out somebody named Mary. Superman. This is dangerous territory here, since there are about 20 different versions of Superman. Everybody's got their favorite and their unfavorite. And most importantly, I've only seen a couple of them. So we'll do the best we can to hit the consistent parts, starting all the way back in the DC Comics days, but do cut me some slack if something here doesn't match the exact plot points of Superman 3. The story starts on the planet Krypton, where things are not going so well. The Death Star has just come into range, and the Emperor is charging up that laser beam thing to obliterate the place, or something like that. Sensing the pending disaster, 2 new parents load up their newborn onto the intergalactic spaceship they keep out in the shed and ship the kid off to live with whoever happens to find him. Basically, it's a rocket-powered version of The Jungle Book with Kal-El as Mowgli. After a nice flight through the universe, including a 3-hour layover at O'Hare, the baby crash lands in Kansas, where his spaceship is discovered by the Kent family. They decide that Alien Child was definitely on their Christmas list and decide to raise the baby as their own. This goes well for about 4 minutes, at which point the infant starts bench pressing the dog and accidentally jumps out of his crib and straight through the ceiling. Other than that, though, things are good. Young Clark Kent grows up, eventually moving from lovely Smallville to the cleverly named metropolis of Metropolis, where he becomes a mild-mannered reporter for a newspaper called the Daily Planet. Sadly, the Planet puts him in charge of the crossword puzzle, which results in some confusion when not too many readers can figure out a 5-letter clue for father figure that is J blank R blank L. Actually, of course, Clark gets himself on the news beat, where he works beside Sidra from Seinfeld if Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman, is your favorite. That's the one I watched in high school, usually after rushing home from quiz bowl practice on Sunday nights. I was so cool. Most of my other Superman background comes from watching the 1950s version with George Reeves on Nick at Night, so as far as I'm concerned, Jimmy Olsen is a dunce, and all Perry White ever does is yell, "Great Caesar's Ghost!" Clark, meanwhile, has some handsome suits that appear to be borrowed from the cast of Miami Vice, and about a half a gallon of Brill cream in his hair. I assume you're familiar with Clark's crime-fighting skill set, but let's review. He can fly, and he's got X-ray vision, so he could pretty much take over all operations of the TSA. He's quite strong. I don't think Magnus for Magnuson wanted to see anybody named Kent showing up for the event where they pull that fire engine up a hill in the World's Strongest Man competition. And most importantly, he can change his clothes in a phone booth. What he does need, though, is a new publicist, as his current staff took someone who is bulletproof and instead hyped that he is able to leap tall buildings. Nice work. C-. Every day at work, Clark listens in on the news, then heads to wardrobe and flies to the scene whenever a crisis arrives. He battles a cast of comical villains like Brainiac, Bizarro, and of course that diabolical suave crooner, Lex Luthor Vandross. He dispatches these baddies with ease, unless of course they've stumbled onto a supply of his one weakness, Taco Bell chalupas. Or kryptonite. We do need to talk about kryptonite, as that's the one substance from the planet Krypton that causes Superman major problems. It's like if I crash landed on another planet and the only thing from Earth that showed up there was steamed broccoli. Now, it is easy to identify, as the substance looks exactly like the glow sticks that your buddy Ryan brings to a wedding reception when he decides it's time to get the party started. The only problem is that when he busts them out, Superman crumbles and starts dancing like Elaine from Seinfeld. Jerry would be very proud to get 2 shout-outs in a Superman write-up, I thought. You would think that being a rare mineral from a vaporized planet a gazillion miles away, this wouldn't pose a frequent challenge to Old Soup. Unfortunately, it seems to me like some of these villains are able to pick up a kryptonite 3-pack along with some scratch-off tickets at their local 7-Eleven, so hard luck, Clark. This is going to show up in a lot of your adventures. We're going to stop here before this does turn into a 1-hour Superman special, but now that you've got the basic idea, all you're going to need to do to become an expert is review a few hundred comic books, TV episodes, movies, card games, board games, Halloween costumes, and children's Valentine cards. And then remember to check in with Super Grover on Sesame Street. It seems like if you want to be big in the podcast world these days, you really need to be doing true crime. You know, with the dramatic film noir music, the whole 9 yards. But that's no problem, because we've got bad guys galore around here, right? So today we introduce a new feature. It's time for the Not Your Mother's Goons True Crime Podcast. Welcome to Not Your Mother's Goons, Episode 1, The Gingerbread Man. July 22nd, 2017 seemed to be your average Saturday in rural Vermont. The sun was out, and 68-year-old Lois McBride had the windows open as she set about to do some baking. Little did she know that she was about to set in motion a string of events leading to one of the most gruesome snack food massacres of all time. Lois and her husband Norman were longtime goat farmers, but on this day they were goat farmers with a hankering for dessert. Lois cut out a gingerbread man named Dwight, heated up to 350, and returned 12 minutes later ready to eat. She couldn't have anticipated what would happen when she opened the oven door. Lois McBride.
I've never seen anything like it. I opened the door, and that dang thing was alive.
She didn't take her meds.
I heard that. Anyway, like I said, I opened up the oven, and that gingerbread man took off on the run, blathering on about how we couldn't catch him.
The gingerbread man was right about one thing. The senior citizen bakers were not about to run him down. But they were not the only ones thinking about eating him that day. As he took off down the dirt road through farm country, the livestock encounters began. Up first, a cow. Holstein Elsie Mooten.
Moo! Was I really going to eat him? Moo bet I was. You ever eat grass and hay all day? But, as you can see, I'm not exactly Seabiscuit over here. He was gone before I could take a bite. Moo!
The gingerbread man continued to sprint, soon encountering Seabiscuit, but leaving him in the dust as well. And if the animal run-ins weren't random enough yet in this story, no one could have anticipated what happened next. Chicken Clucks McRoaster. Well, we tried. But you get the idea. The chicken didn't eat our man either. But his day was just beginning. When we come back, the road takes a deadly turn. Welcome back to Not Your Mother's Goons, where we left Dwight the Gingerbread Man outrunning a cow, a horse, a chicken, and 2 bingo players on his flight to freedom. Everything was going swimmingly, but little did he know that a lack of swimming ability would soon lead to his demise. Exactly what happened next remains a mystery. Sheriff Randy Wintrix, who may be related to Sheriff Tupper from Murder, She Wrote.
About 3:15 that afternoon, we receive a missing persons call about a Mr. Ginger. Our team tracked this Ginger via traffic camera to the intersection of Farm Lane Road and the Chompamup River. He appears to have met up with another animal, either a fox, maybe a beaver, hard to say. A lot of water critters down the Chompamup. River otters, beavers, spiders. Officer Cooper here thinks she saw a tiger shark. Anywho, this Ginger Man and the fox have a conversation. We got the tape. Officer Cooper, roll the footage. Go back. No, too far. Forward. There. Right there. He puts his paw on his stomach and he wags a finger like he's saying, "Don't worry, not hungry." Then, the two disappear off camera. Quarter hour later, the fox returns alone, sporting a large grin and wearing a lobster bib and a pair of khakis. He gets his car keys from his car keys and takes off. Obviously, we have no idea what transpired. A wicked mind bender.
The case has gone on unsolved for years, languishing in obscurity until Not Your Mother's Goons investigated. Through our research, we've discovered previously overlooked police audio of a dripping wet fox named Todd being interviewed by a deputy on a coincidental traffic stop just minutes after the incident. Todd the Fox.
Officer, hey, no, haven't been drinking anything. Definitely not. Just back from the pool. They were out of towels.
What is the truth about what happened to the Gingerbread Man? Did he safely cross and disappear into witness protection? Did he swim himself and meet a soggy demise like a dunked Oreo? Theories abound, but proof is lacking. Todd the Fox declined to comment, and his lawyer, a bloodhound named Copper, chased us off his property. A human neighbor, Amos Slade, did say he'd tell us whatever we wanted, if it meant he'd be allowed to shoot the fox afterward. Thus ends episode 1 of Not Your Mother's Goons, unfortunately with more questions than answers. Join us next time as we investigate a curious woodland burglary with everything. Broken chairs, spilled porridge, and a suspect found sleeping in bed confound a group of bears who just wanted to go for a walk. You decipher the clues, since obviously we sure as hell can't, on the next Not Your Mother's Goons. A big thank you to our whole crew of Not Your Mother's Goons voices, most of whom you'll recognize from past appearances on the show. That includes a big shout out to our friend Dr. C as Todd the Fox, who actually recorded himself while eating a full package of fruit snacks to maximize the realism of that mouthful effect. That is dedication. Let me know what you thought of Not Your Mother's Goons, whether we should bring it back with Goldilocks or some other story, or whether it should mysteriously disappear like the Gingerbread Man. And remember that you can always email me about show stuff at topher@notyourmothersgoose.com. I'd love to hear from you. With that, we're all done for today. We'll be back on July 5th, where I've got some special surprises planned for you, but you'll have to wait until then. Thanks so much for checking out the show. I'm Topher Goggin, and the Goose is loose. We'll be back right after the fireworks with more Not Your Mother's Goose.